Cool. I see it now. Yes.
Yes. Guys, welcome to Dead Talk Live. What I forgot to do is I usually share my screen with my guests, and with Yoko here, I forgot to share it. So I just did it right as we were popping up. How you doing, Yoko?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. This is my first time doing like a live online
I
chat.
know,
So,
I know, and it's a late hour, so you know what? Everything is out the window. We're just gonna have some fun. Tonight, guys, our guest is Yoko Okumura from the movie Unseen that is coming out tomorrow, March 7th, on demand. And I saw this movie last week. I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to chatting about it tonight. And as I'm going to ask you this first question, I'm going to crop out that bottom part, but I got to ask you this question. As I watched this film and as I saw you pop up on my screen today, I'm going to ask you something I never thought in a million years I would ask a guest. Is your favorite color green?
oh man, that's a really hard one to answer. That's a controversial one. I don't know if I could help you with that, but I'm gonna have to out myself and say yes. Yes, it is.
Now, green is very important to you. I saw your pictures, I saw the movie, and what does the color green just mean to you? Again, a question I never thought I would ask, but what does green mean for you?
It's just something that's really kind of hard to put to words. It is a visceral love. I look at it, it makes me happy. I think ever since I was young and saw like the Disney villain neon green or like the like Simpsons nuclear power neon green, I would just be so drawn to that color. And later in life, I just kind of embraced it as an entire personality trait and a lifestyle.
I think that's great. Now, all right, let's get to this movie. We have a story about a woman who's kidnapped by her ex boyfriend. She is very nearsighted. In the process of escaping her psychopathic ex boyfriend, she breaks her glasses. She's out in the woods. She literally can't see the hand in front of her clearly. But she has her phone and she's able to dial the last number that calls her. And that's where she meets up with Sam. Uh, were you given sort of like a plot outline before you got this script? And if so, what did you think about just the general story here?
When I got the script, it came with like a log line in the email. So before I read it, I kind of knew what the overall story was going to be about. And at first I was like, okay, okay. It's two women coming together to survive a abuser. I'm like, okay, I could do that concept. That concept seems to be under the umbrella of who I am as a director and a filmmaker. But I was like, okay, let's see if the gimmick of the we're gonna be on a phone the whole time is gonna pan out. But thankfully Brian and Sal did a great job with scripting a really intense, fun thrill ride, and I was yeah, pleasantly surprised and pleased.
Going back to the way you shot this, your technique with the split screens is very, very reminiscent to Brian De Palma for me. That's what it reminded me of. Uh,
Yeah.
why do you love so much the split screens? It really worked for this film, but what's your love for doing split screens in a film?
I definitely know that like back in the day, more than De Palma, actually for me it was like Michel Gondry's music videos I grew up watching, and there was
Yeah.
like a specifically one that was like kind of a backwards forwards split screen one that I really loved back in the day, and that really stuck with me. But for this particular story, I just knew that it was going to be a necessity. Like it wasn't even like a question for me. Like if I was going to be able to connect these two women and make sure that their friendship and their bond was going to come through for the audience. That it was gonna, I'm going to have to see both of them on screen at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. So we have Emily, who is a successful, strong go-getter in life. Uh, but as the film progresses, you do show us her vulnerable side. You do show us what drives her. In your opinion, how important is that for the audience to see?
Oh, I think it's super important to see somebody who's very strong kind of get defeated and then somebody who, on the other hand, starts a little bit more vulnerable and a little bit weaker becomes stronger, and then them two really help each other out. Because the other character, Sam, starts off, even though she's the one who's physically safe at the beginning of the movie,
Yeah.
and Emily's the one who's in mortal danger. Sam is the one who's like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can help you. I'm really bad at this. Like, I think you should get somebody else to help you. And Emily is the one who's like, no, you got this. Breathe with me. You can do this. So that kind of like character arc swap was super duper important for us.
Now, I'm nearsighted as well. Pretty similar to the way you show us Emily being nearsighted in the movie. Uh,
Yeah.
how did you finally decide on how you were gonna, how nearsighted, how you were going to present her point of view to us?
Yeah, that was even a question that the executives had when I was pitching to be the director of the movie. Like, how are you going to execute her perspective? Because it's just such a key component of bringing the audience along for her ride.
Mm-hmm.
If we kind of just like watched her stumble around but never got to actually look through her eyes, I
Yeah.
don't think we would feel
No.
anything near as what we do right now, as far as empathy goes. So it was really key for me. I pulled a lot of references as far as like different kind of filters that would bring a unique look to the blur. I didn't want to just use like a basic, Gaussian blur from Final Cut Pro or something. I
Yeah.
wanted to develop something that with the cinematographer and find a unique look for it. So it was definitely an ongoing conversation.
Uh, I'm glad you settled on the way you did. And when Emily, the brief times that we see her through her glasses, even then, her vision is not like 2020 with glasses on. She still has a vision impairment. It's just that glasses make it much better where she can see. Now, the mirror opposite of Emily is, of course, Sam. And you talked about Sam. That's the person she dials, who is safe in the beginning of the film. Sam is played by Jolene Purdy, who did a great job playing her. You really show us the contrast between those two characters, as well as the swap and then the similarities. How did you approach Jolene's character, Sam?
Jolene, casting her was the number one key component of creating the Sam that I wanted to. Since the moment I saw her on, White Lotus, I thought
Yeah.
she was hilarious, but also vulnerable and like had this kind of like, I'm just like trying to get by here kind of energy that I think I just like knew was going to be perfect for Sam. So casting her was number one. But then it was just really conversations with Jolene as far as like, where is Sam coming from? Like, there's so much about these women that we don't actually explicitly talk about on
Mm-hmm.
screen, but we needed the actors to be able to bring emotionally, just, going through something that, we don't even know what is. And we talked a lot of actually about like, her own kind of after she had a child, she had some depressive issues, and what would it be like to be kind of constantly stuck in that state and have to be working and have to be dealing with these people who are coming at her. And so it really was a collaboration as far as how to create the character of Sam.
Now, we also find out throughout the movie what is causing not only her depression, but she also feels an overwhelming sense of guilt. Is that
Yeah.
important to the character as well?
Oh my gosh, 100%. Because there is a guilt that both of the characters are feeling when it regards to their mothers. Emily has a guilt that she never took her time off to go to work, to go to Japan with her
Yeah.
mother. And so we kind of know that up front. But, Jolene, Sam is keeping something back, and she's not quite, telling us what she feels about her own mother situation when we learn about, how she passed and how she was sick. And so in a really pivotal moment, the moment that really is like the climax of Sam's, character arc of her becoming the one who's, chanting Emily on, like, get up, you can do this,
Yeah.
you can do this, please get up. In that moment, she has her own confession about her own guilt about something that happened with her mother when she was sick. So I think the shared guilt is a humongously important part of these characters, especially for these really, to earn these emotional moments.
Absolutely. We have to talk about Missy Pyle.
Yes.
I mean, wow. For me, the character of Carol, which Missy plays, is like the comedic relief. Is that how you see Carol, or does she have a greater significance for you?
Oh yeah, what I told all the actors from the very beginning was that the emotional anchor of the movie is obviously the two women, and we want those performances to be very grounded. But then for the villains to be a little bit larger than life, like a little bit more, out of this world. And so there's like a wildness kind of like circling around the protagonist. So definitely with Missy was great though, because I didn't really have to have a conversation with like, oh, you're gonna be comedic, like she just like leaned really hard into who that woman was, and it automatically became both horrific and comedic at the same time. So yeah, I think she definitely knew what the assignment was.
She was great. Were because they're not physically in the same space. Was Midori and Jolene ever physically together on the set?
So yes, actually, we talked a lot about different ways we could shoot this movie. Like, are they actually on FaceTime? Is there a reader off screen? That's not one of them. But at the end of the day, these two actors were so generous with each other. They were like, no, we want to be there together for every single scene. We want to do these scenes together, even if we're not on camera. So yeah, we shot Midori's side first, and Jolene flew out early and was like in the forest with her, just like trudging around all that, like all the bugs and all the dirt herself, like behind camera, like really just like performing the lines with her very loudly.
How supportive is that? That is so awesome. One
Yeah.
scene that really sticks in my mind as hysterical now is when Emily's in the car, okay? She's in Charlie's truck. She's sort of like looking for something next to the seat next to her, and she has Sam on the dash
Yeah.
facing out, okay?
Yeah.
And Charlie and Sam come face to face. Sam's on the phone, and Charlie's in the car. That look he gives Sam, and that look that Sam gives him back was
Yeah.
just perfect. Uh, how did you do that? How did you capture that moment?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because that is really kind of one of my favorite moments too. But it's kind of like an understated quick moment, so not
Yeah,
a lot of people really catch it. But I love that you're commenting on it. Um, it's kind of, I mean, because Jolene's side, we shot like 2 weeks later in a whole different location. So at first it was just me making sure that like, Michael Patrick Lane, who plays Charlie,
yeah.
just kind of gave us that like kind of like deer in the headlights, like little like dog kind of like, not like angling their head, like, huh, kind of moment. I just had to make sure I got his side of that, his like pondering of like, what the heck is that in my car? Um, and then again, like when we were shooting Jolene's side a few weeks later, making sure that she has the kind of deer in the headlights, oh shit moment of these two people looking at each other.
It was
Yeah,
perfect. It was perfect.
thank you.
The
It was
look,
fun.
the look on Sam's face. I mean, for a split second there, I didn't see her on the phone. I saw her sitting in the passenger seat. That's how
Yeah.
awesome that was. So let's talk about Charlie, the ex-boyfriend. What does who does Charlie represent for you? I mean, what is he to you?
So to me, Charlie is, Charlie is, kind of represents a kind of a quintessential, you know, domestic abuser at the end of the day. Somebody who is narcissistic but has no idea that their worldview is skewed. He is somebody who genuinely believes that he is the victim. It is somebody that, yeah, again, he represents many, many things, but on top of that, it's somebody that I've, infused my own ex-boyfriends into. So whatever that tells you about me.
For me, Charlie's a variety, and this is why I asked you. He could be seen as a silver spoon boy, rich, privileged, all his life, throws a tantrum. And for me, his actions are him throwing a tantrum and not even thinking about the consequences. Well, I'm not
Yeah.
going to go to jail if I kill my ex girlfriend, if I kidnap her, because
Yeah.
I'm Charlie. Nothing bad ever happens to me. So that's why I wanted to get your take, and I'm glad you mentioned the abuser part. We know he is abusing Emily emotionally, verbally. The topic of physical abuse is not really touched on. Are we just to leave that to our own biases to decide?
Yeah, there's little crumbs there to I think there's one scene on the cliff when she mentions bruises that he left. So we didn't want to go on like a big, explanation of exactly all their history and like exactly what they went through. We just wanted to make sure to stay in the moment and only hear little bits and pieces of their history that, they would mention. I
Hmm.
wanted to make sure that the movie wasn't trying to tell the audience something more than the characters would ever say to each other. But yeah, I wanted to make sure, we, even with Charlie and Emily, we got to see them like a couple. Like they weren't arguing like, a victim and a predator and a prey, but they were arguing like they dated. They
Yeah.
really had a relationship,
Hmm.
and even with Charlie, I made sure in the beginning of the movie that we hear a little bit about where he's coming from as far as, his dad kicked him off the board and that's when she broke up with him. So then he was feeling like he was abandoned,
Hmm.
all those little details were necessary, I think.
I'm glad you mentioned the cliff scene. I want to ask you something about the cliff scene without giving away any spoilers. When he sort of gets what we think he wants, he seems upset. He's like,
Yeah.
"Damn it!" Did you have a talk with Michael to have that reaction? Like, what were you trying? Because I know I had my own interpretation of why he did that. What were you trying to get Michael to portray at that moment when it happens?
Yeah, our conversations, yeah, me and Michael's conversations about that moment was really about it's not about her, making her go away. It's about him getting what he wants,
Mm-hmm.
which is, exactly the scenario he wants is what he wants to have happen. Not any other accident, not any other, means of, getting rid of her. He has a plan and he wants to fulfill his own desires.
Yeah, and if it goes any other way, he's just going to throw another tantrum. What another thing I love is you really steer away from the final girl horror tropes in this film, where you see somebody bash the bad guy over the head with a bat, drop the bat, and run. You you do the
Yeah.
complete opposite, which I loved watching it. And I watched this with my brother, and we both stated the same thing. Um,
Yeah.
was that in the script, and did you really amplify it, or was that your own touch?
Oh, yeah. I think in the very early drafts, she did not defeat him directly. I think the police came. So when I read it, I was like, oh no, like we gotta push this. That is an unsatisfying ending. Like if he's been choking her out this movie so many times, like this is a, this is like a, this is like a, a fantasy for us. This is
Yeah,
like a victory fantasy for women, of like,
exactly.
if you fight back and work together, you can get them at the end. And I think there's certain moments when they do back off from potentially, ending him. There's a point in the movie at the car where they could have potentially
Yeah.
actually finished him off, but they decide not to. But yeah, and after they make that mistake, like the end of the movie for me was always this. It was never going to be anything else. It was always going to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
them truly defeating him.
I can't imagine him just going to jail. That doesn't seem fitting because I don't think he would have learned his lesson. And then you do have the possibility this guy is rich. Maybe he can get away with it. She made a point.
Yeah.
He made a point to her. Look at me, what you've done to me, and look at you. Who are they going to believe, me or you? So that was a
Yeah.
great point. Before we go, Yoko, I want to ask one question. I believe this was your first feature film, your directorial debut as for a feature. So
Yeah.
tell us, did it live up to what you expected it to be? What were your, feelings on that?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, I always thought my first feature film was going to be like, a $15,000 like indie thing that I shoot in my own, apartment with like no money and my friends, like because I really came up indie and I could never have even imagined that my first feature was going to be this like Blumhouse production, with a decent budget and these amazing cast. Like it really was beyond what I expected it was going to be, and even during this, promotional period, it's also become kind of way more than I thought it was ever going to be. So it's only been really positive, crazy, surprising. Yeah.
Well, you did an amazing job.
Thank
Congratulations, the
you.
guys, our audience. The film is coming out tomorrow. It's called Unseen. Yoko here directed it. It is a fun horror thriller comedy. There is comedy in there,
There is.
thanks to Missy. Congratulations again, Yoko. I want to thank our audience, those of you who are tuning in live and those who will be watching this later on. I want to thank our guest, Yoko Okumura, her movie Unseen. Check it out tomorrow. On behalf of Yoko and myself, stay safe, stay walking. Good night, everybody.